Hi, I'm Sam from Candy Consulting and welcome to Sustain Talks, where I discuss the world of sustainability and CSR with an array of interesting people that I come across on my journey. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Wilkin, founder and CEO of Fly Green Alliance. Hi, Sarah, how are you?
Hi, Sam. Very well, thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I'm just going to start with a brief intro. Please tell everyone more about Fly Green Alliance and how you got started.
So Fly Green Alliance, FGA, we work to increase the supply, production and use of sustainable aviation fuel on the whole. We also work with the business travel sector and corporate travellers on sustainable travel and solutions. So we do cover a whole range, whether it's walking initiatives, cycling initiatives, all the way to how the aviation sector and planes can start to use SAF, sustainable aviation fuel.
Okay. Now I know, because every time I talk about sustainable aviation fuel, people always ask me what it is, and you are probably the best person to explain that. So can you go a little bit deeper into how it's made, where it comes from, a bit about that?
Yep. So SAF is, on molecule for molecule, it is the same as Jet A kerosene. So it is the fuel that goes in the plane. How it's different is that it's made from waste, residues. It can be municipal solid waste. It can be forest residues. It can be also energy crops. And it goes through a chemical process much like kerosene, where actually it is reduced into a liquid fuel. So there's quite a few different kind of processes along the way, and actually there are now 8 different pathways to make the fuel, but what you are essentially doing is breaking it down into hydrocarbons, which then it becomes a crude, and then this can be more processes happen and it turns into a fraction, which turns into the fuel in the long run. But in short, you're going on the life cycle, it is up to 80% emission reduction compared to kerosene.
I mean, obviously it sounds and probably is quite complex, which is why there's not that much about. But why is it so challenging to get it into production?
I think the challenge at the moment is that it's 3 times as expensive. Kind of making kerosene, and production in that way it's been around for so long. The equipment is in place. It's become on scale a much cheaper way to produce it. Drilling happens, and it is on the whole, making kerosene is much cheaper. And of course, as we know, there's new fields of oil being found all the time. The difference between making SAF is that we need to gather the waste or to grow the crops. So there's already additional processes in place, and actually it's new chemistry. We may need to make some changes to the equipment, so it's actually quite a big capital investment. So it's a big capex. There is still not the investment necessarily going to the industry, and it's still difficult to really demonstrate to the investors that there is a customer, because of the price. So the airlines will be partly the customer, but the airlines are being clear that they cannot take on the full price of SAF, with it being 3 times as expensive, and stay competitive. There are certain airlines. There are airlines that are starting to buy certain amounts, but it's not at a huge scale right now, and the figure is 0.01% of global supply. So it's wanted, but it's not an easy discussion right now.
I think that there is a field that it is growing, though. I've certainly seen, over the last year and a half, I hear it mentioned a lot more. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it really is growing. So I set up FJ in 2019 because we got a Booking.com grant with the University of Amsterdam to turn waste into aviation fuel. So when I started to look for investment for the work, I spoke to a lot of investors, and it was very clear that there wasn't much awareness. No, there wasn't really much discussion with in the general public. Travelers didn't know what it was, so I set up FJ really to increase the awareness. There are early adopter companies like Nesta, of course, Shell and BP and others are starting to work in this area, but really I think it needed push. It needed kind of awareness building, and that's what we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, and throughout the pandemic, I mean, it's been an interesting year and a bit for most of us, but what's been your biggest learning? I mean, travel pretty much came to a halt. What have you learned over the last year and a half?
I think what I've learned is patience. Positive. Well,
yeah, say it.
Positivity. I think it's been really stressful, to be honest.
Yeah.
The travel industry, the aviation industry has been grounded, so it's and they were kind of some of the people we've been speaking to over the last few years, and it was clear that the aviation sector wouldn't have budget to put towards staff and initiatives. But I think it's pivoting as well. You've got certain ideas, and when you're building a startup or a business, you understand what is happening globally in society, and then you make pieces of business that make sense. I'd already started to think about how we could work with the business travel sector and how FGA can be useful and doing the right thing. And that's when I set up FGA Travel Smart, because what we are doing is working with corporates and TMs, travel management companies, and carbon calculating, and then really concentrating on how to reduce scope 3, which is what travel is.
Yeah.
So we did. So it's really, I think the biggest learning is watching what's happening, listening.
Yeah.
And then, we're also carrying on, because we could have, you can be easily paralyzed by things, but carry on, keep thinking, keep talking, meet other people. Yeah. Continue.
Very resilient, and I think the sector, the SAF sector, is really lucky to have you, because you're obviously very passionate about it. Like, if you was just to snap your fingers and make SAF work, how would you do that, and what would that look like?
Well, it kind of is starting to work. So I think it's what we are doing with FJ as well is really, because it's always supply and demand. There's not much supply because there wasn't much demand, but nobody knew what SAF was. But because of my market research background, advertising background, you see certain signs, and also you're reading, and climate change has accelerated. All the work is accelerating. IPCC report was discussing 10 years to make a difference to get to 1.5, and that's in 2018. So it's really kind of making sustainable, well, I think actually what we've been seeing and doing and being part of is making sustainable travel relevant, making it people know what it is and how to do it. So it's not just one click of the fingers, but you can, there are certain pieces in place where you are seeing what's happening and you're working on the next thing. And then actually what happens is that you see quite a few different things are coming together. You put all the different pieces of work, you've got many partners, sectors, and then actually some things do come together, and it can sometimes click into place quickly. It's with SAF and any renewable energy, I think it's always like 5 to 10 or more years, time ranges. But you can see certain work happening quite quickly. And well, as you've seen, Sam, there was the Sustainable Business Travel Summit, there was the SAP Concur Summit. I've now been invited to a podcast by SAPs, and there's actually a lot of discussion, and
there's loads,
So and you were the first one that invited me to an event last February.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that was with the Business Travel Association, and I think that was when we were very first met. But like I've learned so much from you, but I know you've got a big history. But and also actually you're talking a lot about diversity and inclusion, but what does sustainability and social responsibility, what does that mean for you? Why are you so passionate about it, and what does that mean?
I think I think it's also time of life and what stage you're in. As I said, I'd worked in advertising. I really was looking for a change. I was working in a hotel chain and working in digital, and then I met the CSR team, and actually I really liked what they were doing. I thought it was important. I also had friends that were working either at that are working at the UN or in climate policy in Africa, and I saw others around me really driven by their work, and I knew I had something. Not quite, something was missing, and I really wanted to do something positive, productive, useful, and also kind of develop my career. It's many factors, and I love the work I do, and I think it's loads of things. But
there's so much to it, isn't there?
Many layers of so many driving factors, and I think you also you kind of bring things together sometimes, and then it makes sense at a certain point in your life.
Yeah, it totally does, and I think I went through that same journey myself, so I completely understand. And it's just having that purpose, and really feeling like now I'm having conversations all day with people, and it's just they just get better and better and better, and it's so insightful. But it seems like there's a very long road to come. So we're in July already. I'm shocked to even say that. But as we what are your plans for the rest of 2021 and into 2022?
So we are starting to work with clients. So it's really consultancy. The FJ Travel Smart Consultancy. I'm also building a new alliance, which I won't talk about yet.
Ooh.
But I think I totally believe in alliances. I think to make differences, you need to bring people together and find common interests, and it is power in numbers. You get a group together that also have the ability to make differences, the ability to influence. then it's really pushing the conversation on.
Yeah.
And I think, I think what I've discovered also is that I love building. And I think I'll keep building new things. I love the strategic aspect of FGA. So it'll be developing our and increasing our. I'm really lucky that I've been invited to some panels, so I will do as many of those as I can. I went to a panel today with which Boeing was sponsoring, and I was there with Pledgeful. So it's increasing our partners, increasing our the panels we do, and with a view to becoming more, sustainable travel becoming more commonplace, and we do some good work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more that you can educate people, the better it is, because people, I think a lot of people are still very lost on the journey that they should be taking. And there's so many acronyms, and people don't necessarily understand what even the basics of a carbon footprint or carbon calculation. I mean, when you're thinking about who inspires you, if you was to say to someone that was really interested in sustainability as a whole, who would you say they should be following on LinkedIn? Which articles should they be reading? Of course yours, but yes. Is there anyone that who's your go-to person? Who do you like their things all the time?
Oh, I did start following Ellen MacArthur because she's been a really big pioneer for the circular economy, which is how I actually started doing our work, because I was starting to think about waste and what to do with things in our hotel chain. So I think there's, I follow a lot of different people now. I think, and also people like I always read The Economist, and I'm having can't actually think right now. But I think I don't know, there are certain I
think Ellen MacArthur and The Economist, if you're reading those articles and blogs, I see there's so much in sustainability there anyway. And if someone was starting out when you were in your early days, and there was a question that you had about sustainability, and you was just like, oh, if someone had told me this in the beginning, what would you say someone that is starting out in their journey? What should they know about? What's a really simple, easy understanding
of sustainability? I think it kind of means different things to different people. It depends if you're thinking of it from a personal point of view, because I'm starting to do some work with like pledges, and we've discussed what we've called carbon fasting. So that's kind of taking on the personal responsibilities for how you live. And I think what we discussed is that by how many clothes you buy, and how you travel, and how many holidays you have. So it's like living sustainably. But then from a business perspective, sustainable business models are being discussed, and how you can sustain the business in the future, ESG, circular economy, impact investing. So there's loads of different aspects. And I mean, sustainability also is the energy transition, and that's what I always discuss, because I think over time, certain phrases I know can get used a lot.
Yeah.
And I think people, you really need to make sure people are not switching off.
Yeah.
And that you can keep things interesting and keep it. And I think from a business perspective, you really need to turn it into finance, and how investing in this or having this business model is really good for the business from not just climate, but also sustaining the business itself. I think it's dual in business, and then personally it's quite different.
Yeah, It's still, again, every time I speak to you, I learn something, and I always do. And thank you so much for your time. People, if they want to get in touch with you, they can reach out on LinkedIn. I know you're very active on LinkedIn, so they can just ping you an invite or send you a message. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to continue working together for a long time. And you know, good luck with all of your projects and with SAF and with your consultancy as well. I look forward to speaking to you again, but thank you. This has been very, very interested, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks, Sam. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.